I'm not exactly sure if I want to upload this video. Hello and welcome back to Meerkat Chris. So the latest addition to the MCU released just yesterday, I think it was. And you know, the MCU is something I'm interested in, it's a bit of fun. I've seen every single one of them so far, and I enjoy most of them, if not all of them. And yesterday we got Black Panther. And I'm not gonna lie, I don't quite get why everyone was excited for this film. Because of course we got the introduction to Black Panther in the 2015 film Civil War, Captain America. And everybody seemed to love him in that film. I personally didn't really care for him. I thought he was just a bit bland, and his only motivation as a character was, my father was killed and now I am king. I can't do accents. So I never really felt this movie was for me. I get that everybody loves this film, at least that's what it seems like. I mean, especially if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, which is a reliable source. I don't know, anyway, that's a totally different topic. Everyone seems to love this film, and then there's me. And I'm not trying to just sound different, because everyone else loves it, like I said, and I want to love it as well. Am I losing my voice? I think I'm losing my voice. Now, don't go along just hating me for the sake of it. I'm going to be doing 4 things good and 4 things bad about Black Panther. It's not factual, it's my opinion. So I'm going to start off with the first good thing for Black Panther. And that was the fact that Andy Serkis and Michael B. Jordan make for great and very compelling movie antagonists. Andy is beyond charismatic in his crazy performance, and Michael B. Jordan kinda has more development than Black Panther himself, and also kinda has more understandable motivation than Black Panther. And he's the bad guy. Because he has some understandable reasons for wanting to do this, which I'm not going to get into because this is a non-spoiler review, and I'm going to avoid all spoilers because I don't agree with them. I don't know if it was just me, I just found him more compelling. And that's a good thing. My god. Now for my first bad point. Black Panther is probably the most uncompelling character I've seen in a very long time. My father is dead and now I am king. That is still his character development in this. I know it doesn't take place too long after Civil War, but still, you know, that's all he had for Civil War, and I feel like this is all he still has for that. Although he does do the occasional Batman stealth attack, which can be reasonably cool. But then you have on top of that the fact that he's practically invincible against explosions and guns. I know it's a different scenario back on Wakanda with... I can't say it. But in the real world, there's not really any tension because I just feel like he's just going to get it all done because he's like perfect and unstoppable. Not only that, but Black Panther is just so monotone. He's like the most monotone guy in the whole cast of this film. Everyone else at least expresses emotion with their voice. He just seems to be like this the entire time, sort of like, I am Black Panther and I am the king. Whereas everyone else is like, I'm Black Panther and I am the king. Like, I know that's a bit over the top, but everyone else was way more interesting to watch than him. Again, this might just be me. I'm not having a go and I'm not hating on the film. Because I mean, the bad guy, Michael B. Jordan, is very similar to Black Panther, just with a few of the opposite opinions and all that. He kind of has the similar tropes, like I said, but he's way more interesting and way more compelling to watch. He takes the screen with him. If he's in a scene, you're watching him because he's just energetic, you know, he's really into his performance. Same with Andy Serkis, whereas I don't really get that from Black Panther. Again, this might just be an issue with me, but... a film is only as good as its villain. I don't necessarily agree with that statement. I mean, sometimes, yeah, The Dark Knight is great and all. You know, I think the film itself still has to be good. Second good point is the film does have some really good, strong world building going on towards Wakanda. Wakanda, I can't... Even if it does take up a little too much of the running time, it still delves deep enough into the whole world building process to really help make it feel like a living, real place. Like, you get to understand the ins and outs of it and kind of get a feeling for the type of people the Wakandians That's not a word. You kind of get to know and understand the people of Wakanda and its cultural lifestyle. Not only this, but it also has some beautiful skyline imagery. It's a nice looking place. And I mean, it does come across as CGI for the most part. I don't know if there's really much practical stuff going on there. I'll have to look into that if not. But it's not terrible. The CGI is good enough, minus a few shots with the sun in the distance. It just doesn't come across like that's how the sun works in cameras. But other than that, it's quite nice. So that is a good thing. The second bad thing is that I do feel the film has an over-reliance on the score. I mean, this can seem a bit contradictory to typical Marvel hate, because Marvel have been hit hard pretty recently in the past few years because of their lack of interesting and compelling and memorable scores. Minus maybe the Avengers theme, that's pretty cool. There's not really that much that you can take away from any of the films that's an original piece of music, and then go away, hum to your friends, and then be like, yeah, that's that film we just watched. And they're like, yeah. It's not like Sam Raimi's Spider-Man or anything. Black Panther tries to do something with it. Again, I don't really remember any of them now that I think about it. I think the type of music they were using felt appropriate considering the style and nature of the film. But I do feel like it goes a little overboard in trying a little too hard to make this music more memorable. And it kind of comes across as a bit distracting and rather annoying. The film has some good action set pieces, but there is some scenes set in Wakanda where there's a couple of action scenes there, and there's just music constantly just in your ears. Like, I'll be watching a brawl on the screen, and I'm like, yeah, that looks cool, and it sounds cool from the sound design and all that, and it looks like it's well choreographed, and the camera's doing a good job of keeping up with it. But then you have the music just constantly bombarding you, and it gets to a point where you're hearing the music more than you're watching what's going on screen, if you know what I mean. And it does feel like they've got music in like every single small scene and every single large scene for at least an hour and a half, I feel. Because I remember sitting in the cinema being like, is there going to be a scene without music? And then it got to about the hour and a half point, and there was a decent scene about the 1.5 hour mark, and it had no music. It just played with the on-screen sound, and I liked it. It was a nice, quiet scene. Even if I didn't quite find what was going on that interesting, that scene stood out to me more than others because it kind of changed up the pace a little. And that scene had a greater impact because it finally gave up on having a score for at least one scene. But everything else just constantly has this overly dramatic sound that's just... I don't think this is a problem for everyone, it's just something that once I noticed I couldn't get out of my head. Like I said, this is a personal opinion review, it's not a fact. What I'm saying is not factual, it's a personal issue, I guess. Good. Like I said, the film does have some fun and reasonably creative set pieces. Like, for example, and this is not exactly a spoiler, there's a car chase at one point in the film. It kind of has enough creative input into the scene in terms of choreography to make it stand on its own from other typical car action scenes. It really gets into Black Panther's abilities as like this superhero guy and works with them to create some interesting scenarios with these cars and such. And then they also have the Wakanda technology come into it. Wakanda, I can't say, is it Wakanda? Wakanda. And stuff like that is really cool. That's where I was really into it a few times. The third bad thing is the humor. I kinda like that Marvel tries its best to implement humor into its films. Although sometimes I do feel it comes across as a bit too forced. I felt this way with Thor what's it called? Thor Ragnarok. Had some genuinely great humor here and there, but it tried a little too hard to implement humor into every single scene and every single scenario, that it kind of got a bit annoying and took me out of the film for a while. This one doesn't do that. It kind of tries to take the opposite route and play things a bit more seriously, and that I liked, but then it still had to have that cliched Marvel humor on top of it, and it really didn't work here. Usually I do end up laughing at the typical Marvel stuff, but it's so out of place and so awkward. There's literally so many scenes where the scene would just pause after a character says something with a grin on their face, and they'd just kind of stand there like, and then go on and say the next line of dialogue, because it's obvious that that's where the space was intended for people to laugh in the audience. And nobody was laughing. I wasn't laughing. I didn't even get a chuckle out of it. Maybe I'm dead inside, but nobody else was laughing, so it obviously wasn't just me. And instead of it being humorous and, like, admirable, it was just awkward. Not in the awkward, funny, good way. This was just awkward. Fortunately, this isn't throughout the entire film, and it usually only consists of scenes involving the Q-esque type character. You know, the woman who works on all the gadgets at Wakanda and does all the technological advancements in Wakanda City. What am I doing? You know, her. I didn't like her character that much. I felt like she was literally the embodiment of all this humor that they were trying to implement into the film, and it felt all forced, as did her character, who just came across as rather cringy and just boring in general. And the fourth good thing, and this is something I actually really liked in the film, I don't know if it was intentional or not, but there was a scene involving Black Panther going into the real world. I don't know, it might have been in South Korea or something like that. And he goes inside to this building, and it kind of plays out similar to a scene in Skyfall, the James Bond film, the 2012 James Bond film. It has the same iconography as that James Bond film. It has the same lighting and same art style as the Skyfall film. It even involves similar character tropes as in that film, as well as similar scenarios that play out in that film. Even just from small things like them walking down some steps felt very similar to a scene in Skyfall, as well as the way they interact with each other over some earpieces felt very similar of the scene in Skyfall that I'm talking about, and you will understand what I'm on about if you've seen both films by the time of the end of this review or whatever. It did almost feel like a direct rip-off of that scene, and not in a good way. In some ways it didn't feel intentional, but it was very obvious that somehow this scene is trying to reflect on the maybe influences of the James Bond franchise on the Black Panther film, because there is a lot of similarities, as with the Q character, for example, that I mentioned earlier. And that's not a bad thing. I like that. I love the James Bond franchise, and it was kind of enjoyable for me to notice that in the film, and yeah, I kind of liked that. I liked that scene. It was a fun, enjoyable, with some well choreographed stuff going on in it. Might be my favourite scene in the film, actually. And now for the fourth and final bad thing in my review of Black Panther. Panther. Is that... Oh, everyone's gonna hate me. I just didn't find it interesting enough. I just felt like throughout most of the film and by the end of the film that the Black Panther film wasn't really worthwhile having. Especially when you look at it as part of the MCU. I don't have anything against them making a Black Panther film. I think that's kind of a cool idea, and if it's going to go down the James Bond route, yeah, why not? I'm all up for that. But the problem lies in the fact that it comes across as it feels like something that Marvel Studios had to do before Infinity War comes out, rather than something that they felt they needed to do. I mean, by the end of it, and I might be getting this wrong, I admit I might be getting this wrong, but the Black Panther film only seems to bring about one big change to the MCU by the end of it. And you'll obviously know what the big change is by the end of Black Panther, so I don't really need to describe that. But other than that, Black Panther as a character is still pretty much in the same place as he was in Civil War in terms of character development, and it's not like I really care enough for the characters that remain by the end of Black Panther to warrant me really having any interest at all in the Black Panther franchise. Anyway, in conclusion, I'll get to my rating in a minute, which you're gonna hate, but I thought that the film had some really good supporting cast in terms of like Andy Serkis and Michael B. Jordan. The film does have a couple worthy scenes here and there, such as the James Bond-esque scene I was mentioning earlier, but I do feel that the film itself goes on a little too long, and it's kind of a bit overstuffed in terms of stuff. That was a stupid line. What the heck why am I even on YouTube? What I meant to say is the film to me felt like it was just going on forever. Because the film does seem to take over an hour before anything remotely interesting starts to happen. Add in the fact that I thought that the character lead in Black Panther himself was kind of dull and very uncompelling. I mean, I don't think the film is terrible. That's not what I'm saying at all. I can totally understand why people like it. I don't understand why people love it so much, and I don't quite get the level of praise it has so far. But I understand why you might like it, okay? It just wasn't interesting enough to me. And I haven't read any of the comics or anything, so maybe that plays into it a little. But anyway, my overall rating for Black Panther is... 4.0 out of 10. Oh, that wasn't good at all, was it? I can feel the hatred flowing through you. Can you tell it's awkward for me to say this to you guys? Because I don't want you to hate me. I like you guys, you know? Anyway, not a terrible film. But that's the end of the video, so I hope you guys kind of enjoyed it. I know I probably got on your nerves or whatever. That always seems to happen when I have a bad opinion on something. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm an idiot, you know? Thanks for watching. Bye.